Hey guys, it's producer Ross here, and welcome to another edition of the Self-Isolation My Ipswich Town Football Club. Today I'm joined by Amy Downs, the diary of the Tractor Girl, Kings of Anglia columnist as well. Amy, thank you very much for joining me in this weird and uncertain times. How are you doing in this current situation?
No problem. It's nice to speak to somebody outside of my immediate family at the moment. It feels like it's me and the kids and the other half, and that's it at the moment. Like nobody else in the world. It's very strange.
Of course, you've got your two young kids. You're based in you said to me, a suburb of Leeds. How is that trying to juggle having two kids and knowing what's going on at the moment? How is that?
We've actually my son had my youngest, who's 6 months, he had a high temperature about a week before Boris called lockdown, so we've actually been in lockdown a week longer than everybody else, so feel like we're old hats at it now. And my partner went out for our first supermarket shop on last week because we were finally out of self-isolation, and it's this massive food shop that we've never done one that big, like for just the three of us are eating. It seems strange that we need to be so much. It's not hoarding, it's just that our cupboards were empty. We had to completely restock because you just get through just the little bits you didn't even know were in the cupboard, don't you? You just dig it out because I'll make another meal out of this tin of tomatoes that is hidden at the back. So we're doing all right though. We're not doing too bad. We've had some fun. I've just been building a den with Harry in the garden this morning, which is something I wanted to do since we bought this house. So that has been nice. And I think I wouldn't necessarily say like, oh, it's given me more time to do stuff, but it has given me the chance to do the stuff we probably put off because we're really, really busy all the time. But things like, I don't know, clear out this study and make a den with Harry, we'd be so busy normally we didn't get time to. So it is really nice to have that. The positive side of it is that we get to spend more time as a family. And Harry starts school in September. He's nearly 4, so it's like the last few months of enjoying all the time with him before I never get to again, basically. In my blood, it was passed down to me. My dad, I remember, I was born in Ipswich and we moved to Cambridge for my dad's job when I was 8. So I remember like sitting in the hallway waiting for my dad to come home from the Ipswich games with a scarf around his neck, and I was always really excited that Daddy was getting home and for him to tell me whether Ipswich had won or lost or not. And so it sort of like was always in there for me. But what is quite cool is that my granddad is actually a Norwich fan. And when my dad was young, when my dad was young, because they live in Stowmarket, he still does actually, but they lived in Stowmarket, and Grandad gave him the option. Grandad has until recent years had been a season ticket holder at Carrow Road for his whole life, and he said to my dad, would you rather go to Carrow Road or do you want to go to Portman Road? And he said, I'll take you to whichever one you prefer. And my dad, God bless him, thank God, decided to choose Portman Road, and he took crate along to the North Stand and was hooked from the word go. So yeah, I'm very, very grateful. And then a bit more history about me for people who haven't sort of bumped into me on Twitter. I moved up to Yorkshire. It was after I had finished my masters, so it was exactly just over 10 years ago now. Moved up here and settled and sort of got work up here and decided that actually I'm going to stay put now, but I'm still following Ipswich as often as I can. I don't get to go down to Portman Road very often now. I had one game planned this season. It was Rochdale at home, which is was meant to be in about 2 weeks' time, and I'm absolutely gutted that I don't get that trip. I suppose we might get it rearranged in the summer, but it was meant to be my hen do, so I was a bit absolutely devastated I didn't get to do that. But I do try to get down to Portman Road when I can, but obviously with the kids around it's not so often, so I'm a bit more of I'm a northern blue. I like the northern away days. I enjoy our games up here. I think they're good fun, good day out. Trying to work it out earlier, it's about 25 years ago, and it was a friendly at the Abbey, Cambridge United Stadium, and we sat in the family stand in the Abbey, and we lost 3-1, but we were 1-0 down at half time, and they came out and scored almost immediately, but because they'd swapped ends, I was only 10. I didn't realise that was what the teams did. So I jumped up because I thought it was Ipswich, and my dad was like slowly trying to get me to sit down because everyone around us was celebrating. I was like, oh, okay. So it was a tough lesson there in football, in that that you have to cope with these heavy defeats sometimes, and unfortunately sometimes with our Ipswich, is it? But yeah, it was, that was my first game, and then my first league game was actually the day we got relegated from the Premier League back in the 90s, when the home fans carried Richard Wright off the pitch on their shoulders. So that's always going to be a cracking memory, because I remember back then it felt like, even though we'd been relegated, there was so much hope about us coming back up again. We were well liked, we were a good team, and we still had sort of good players, and I loved going. I absolutely loved going. So good times back in the 90s. Will only ever be one for me, and that's Matty Holland. He is my absolute idol. I think he's incredible. What he did for us on the pitch and off the pitch as a sort of ambassador for the club, he is the nicest guy you could ever meet. Like, in person, he's incredible. He actually, so my eldest is called Harry, but his middle name is Matthew, which is after Matt. And Matt very sweetly, because I tweeted it a couple of days after Harry had been born, Matt very sweetly announced it on his TalkSport radio show, which just had me with all those hormones going 2 days after giving birth. It was just, I was in floods, and it was really nice. And Harry has met Matt at a charity game that we had at Bury and things like that. So for me, he's a very, very, very special player. And I really love like what he does now in terms of the media. I find him really interesting, his knowledge and his experience. And he just seems, he's an all-round good guy, really, isn't he, our Matty? Not long after I started supporting Town, George Burley came along, and it was just, the only way is up from there. It was an incredible time to support Town, and the way that he built the team. And I mean, I suppose like you could talk about his shrewdness in sort of like transfers in terms of Martin Rooser, Marcus Stewart, things like that. Obviously, Matty Holland as well, and that whole team. They just, I mean, no disrespect to the current team. I've really enjoyed your podcast talking about the legends of Ipswich Town. I don't think our team will ever sort of emanate that quality, that absolute class that we had in the 90s and early noughties, because they were something special. And it was him at the end of the day. It was George Burley that pulled them together and got them playing, and it was beautiful football as well. It was so enjoyable. So George Burley, without a doubt. I'll probably always have a soft spot for Joe Royal as well, because that was when we've sort of like, I don't know, we'd slipped away from those daydream fairy tale days of when I was supporting us in the Premier League, and he just still got us playing good football. And I'll always think it was such a shame that he made the decision to move on, but don't blame him. I don't think it would have been quite as enjoyable under Evans and everything that's been since. And then possibly slightly controversial, I was always a really big fan of Mick McCarthy right up until that last game when we played Norwich away. I was always a huge supporter of him. I think it goes without saying, everyone's said it enough times now, what he did on a shoestring was incredible. 2014-2015 season is my favourite time of recent years. Being an Ipswich fan, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what he did. I even totally understood the whole defensive playing. I was happy with it. It was just a shame that it ended the way it did, and I think that he was, responsible for the sourness between him and the fans. I do think he made things worse. But yeah, in more recent years, I would say I'm a big fan of him. There's been several over the years. Yeah, that's. We talk about like how awful this last season is and the games that we've sat through, but I was even thinking about Tranmere away and how much I enjoyed that this year, that goal from Caden Jackson. And I mean, the game itself wasn't great because of that awful they had. Yeah. I just enjoyed watching that game, I think, and obviously with Caden's winner, it just topped the icing on the cake there. But favourite ever game, without a question, is the playoff semi-final, where we'd come from 2-0 down away to Marcus Stewart scoring 2 away to get us heading in on a level playing field, heading into the home game. It was just this wonderful fairy tale that we were right in the middle of in 2000. It was so nice. It felt like it was meant to be when we went up. But yeah, I mean, even that game itself, we went 1-0 down, 1-1, 2-1 down, so on and so forth. And it had the adrenaline going, it had the nerves, it had the, oh my God, we've messed this up. It had Jim Magilton absolutely like saving the day. The extra time, everything was just I think that even the away goals rule counted back then as well. So it was a bit like we actually have got to win this. So it was really special. It was a wonderful example of how well we could play football. That for me, I think, was the best we'd ever played. The way the team played together as well, and just Rusa scoring in injury time and extra time. And I looked at my dad because everybody had started running on the pitch, and I was like, "Dad, please can we go down? Please can we?" Were in the top of the what is now the co-op. Is it the co-op stand now?
Yeah.
That's Britannia back where I was. I can never remember what sponsor they've got, but yeah. So we were in the top tier of that. So we ran down all the stairs to get out onto the pitch, watched the end of the game, whistle blew, and we all piled on, and Sheepshanks and the centre circle and things like that. That was a special game, as much for everything that was going on around outside as well as the beautiful football. I have worn out my playoff DVD. I love it. I said to you before we were talking, I didn't want it all to be banging on about the playoffs, but it was a really special year. But my favourite goal is actually the Marcus Stewart one, but not at Wembley, but not necessarily for Stewart's like finish to it. It was the build up, and it was all Naylor. Naylor sort of manages to break away, and then he holds up the ball on the left hand side, and then he sort of flicks it to Jamie Clapham, who then crosses it into Stewart. And it's just so, everybody's so perfectly positioned, and they knew where each other was, and it was just instinctive for them. And nowadays we just don't see that instinctiveness where they just sort of know where each player is going to be, because they are just this really sort of like connected team. That was a beautiful football goal. I loved that. I was trying to think for a bit of variety. I was trying to think of some others. There was also Jimmy Bullard at Millwall away. It was like a thunder blast. Was it free kick? That was pretty special. There's also been some other Norwich. I've been to Norwich away quite a few times. I've been really lucky too. So Tommy Smith scoring in the playoff finals, semis more recently, scoring up the other end of the pitch and then running down in front of us. I was very, very lucky to get seats 2 rows from the front. So he was literally like on his knees down in front of us, which was that was incredible. But yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, no other goals seem to sort of measure up to that Marcus Stewart goal at Wembley for me. Question was made for me. This is my favourite, and I was a season ticket holder for 15 years, so I get the love of home games. I miss Portman Road dearly, but I do love away games. There's something special about the different crowds that go, especially up north. There's a group of us that over the years have started to recognise each other, started to say hello, and started to really enjoy spending time together, which is what football's about at the end of the day, isn't it? But yeah, so the favourite away ground for me would be based more on sort of like the day out rather than actually what I think is the ground, if that makes sense. So one of my favourite grounds is the Hull. In terms of the ground itself, I actually think it's really nice, but I do get that a lot of people don't like that modern design. I understand that. I really like that. I like the way that you sort of, as you approach, it kind of appears out of the middle of nowhere. It's just in this big field almost in the middle of like loads of houses. And again, we had a great away day there. Last time we played there, we went and had drinks along the marina, the docks, and we had a really nice time there before we went. So I really, really enjoy Hull, Barnsley, which is an absolutely terrible town. there when I lived there when I first moved up here, so I do say that with a lot of affection. But I always really enjoy the away games there. I think it's good fun. Lots of pubs to go to. The local people are always really friendly. There's the nice connection between the because of the Wembley final, that always gets mentioned. Bit of banter that goes between us. No bad feeling. Annoyingly, my least favourite away ground is Elland Road, which is 10 minutes down the way from me. I cannot stand going there. I hate it. It costs a bomb. It's an absolutely terrible view, and to this day, I've still not seen us win here. So I hate going. But obviously, if we're here, it would be silly for me not to go. Like, I can't not be here when the boys are down the road. So I begrudgingly go and sit and moan all game, and which is standard.
Yeah, like it's great atmosphere, but yeah, the view there is terrible. You are just in that weird corner, and it's just scaffolding and just bollards in the way. It's like, why have you put us here? Of course, home ground. They don't want the away fans to have that advantage, or the away team. So of course they're going to put us in a not a great position, but
So I've got my favourite
love it.
is the one with the horses down the sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
This was actually the first replica shirt that I ever got, so I think that's why that was my favourite. I believe this is the one we wore when we beat Norwich 5-0 as well, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But so I think that might be why that's my favourite. I'm also, I finally got last season, a friend of mine gave it to me. Actually, I think it's a couple of seasons ago. But the one that faded from white to blue.
Yeah.
Absolute favourite. If you talk to people online about it, loads of people absolutely hate it, because now when you look at it, it looks awful. But at the time, that was really, really, really fashionable to have those like fade to different colour shirts. So I loved that. And as a kid, I always really wanted that one, but never was allowed to sort of get replica shirts, didn't have the sort of money at the time, waited for that one. And then the third favourite is probably the Abbott Ale away shirt, which I still haven't managed to get hold of. It's like gold dust, that thing. So but I do love that one, I think, just because it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of retro kits, and for me, I actually really like the fade kit as well. Like, I've seen a few people wear it at games. I'm like, oh, that just looks so good. It just looks so good. Back then, it wasn't, probably that didn't look great, and some people don't like it. But I think sometimes I like quirky kits. Not too quirky where it looks horrible, but that is just got a nice little quirk to it, and I do like it. So there you go.
Well, the one with the horses down the sleeve, I've worn to a few away games, and most of the games that I go to up here, I'll have to come into Leeds to then like get the taxi home the rest of the way or whatever. So I very, very, very regularly bump into Leeds fans, unfortunately. So I'll be in a pub having a pint, and the number of people who've come over to me and said, oh, I love that shirt. Oh, what year was that from? And it really does sort of like, people do remember it. So it's another reason why I really like that shirt. And I think that's, like you say, the quirky shirts sometimes are the better ones, I think, rather than some of the ones like, I really like the Adidas one from the year we were in the playoffs more recently. That's lovely, that's smart, but am I still going to remember it in 10 years' time? Probably not. Not like this one. I have cried at 3 football matches. I'm not particularly emotional when it comes to football, but there have been sort of 3 moments where I've really peaked in, oh my God, this is awful. So there was when Kieran Dyer threw his boots into the North Stand. That was the year before we went up, and we knew he was going over the summer. That was it. I knew that was the last time I'd ever see him play. So that was pretty sad. And then a few years later was Matty Holland's last game for us, where he scored at Derby away, and my dad had to hold me, bless him, because I was just like, I don't want to go. But anyway, so those were obviously more based on the players, but none of them, no low points, not getting relegated from the Premier League, not worrying about us being in administration, nothing measured up to Accrington away last season in the Cup, when everything just felt so awful. It felt like everything had gone so wrong with Hurst. It felt like we were never going to be able to pull out of it, which obviously we didn't. And it just felt so desperate, like there was no hope whatsoever. And went to Accrington as a bit of a, oh, you know, I get to go to a new ground. This will be a nice day. And just to see the complete lack of, I don't know if I think it was effort that day, but the lack of quality and the lack of like desire to do anything that day. And also like the fans around me quite rightly were so angry, and it was like the realization that day of, yeah, I'm at the lowest point of this club's history, because actually from that point under Lambert we did start to pick up the performances a little bit, not enough, but it never really felt quite so desperate, the fact that we were going down, probably because we'd all accepted it by January. But that moment then when I was like, okay, I get why people are so like despondent at the moment. I get why people are so resigned to relegation, because there's just nothing there. And realizing that my wonderful club that I was watching 20 years ago win the playoffs, this is what we are now. And that's not a nice thing to have to contend with, really.
Another FA Cup game we can't win. That was a decade. We were hoping, that sort of anniversary of the FA Cup that year. We're hoping to, at least have a little bit of a run, and we couldn't even beat once again another League Two. They were League Two at the time. We were, still Championship. So, but yeah, not a good day at all.
Without a doubt, Martin Rusa, we all know it, don't we? The commentary of Rusa Premiership, we're in, and just knowing that after all those years, 4 years, it seems like nothing now. We've had 17 years in the Championship, but 6 years trying to get in through the playoffs, 4 years, sorry, trying to get through the playoffs, and the heartbreak that we'd known before, doesn't that feel like nothing now? It was just so special. And Matty Holland like lifting the cup, and I remember Rob Chandler singing the blues. Rob Chandler was on the tannoy, who's the Ipswich, is on the tannoy at Ipswich now, and well, it was at the time as well. And he was sort of like cheering and getting everybody G'd up, and they got singing the blues playing, which I know again is another love or hate, isn't it, the singing the blues anthem. But for me it will always be about that year and how special it all felt, and walking away from Wembley absolutely ecstatic and just not expecting it at all. It was not expecting it, but feeling like it was written in the stars. It was just like fate that was our year.
Finally get there.
Yeah,
all those heartbreaks of years and stuff.
Oh, exactly. And then following on from it, I think it just felt like a dream. Finishing fifth, never could have predicted that. The papers taking the mickey out of, lowly Ipswich Town, and then us basically sticking two fingers up at them. And then the year after that, I had to go to my head of sixth form to ask if it would be all right if I could go to San Siro and take 24 hours of college. On the plane, walked into the waiting lounge at Stansted, and it was just blue and white, and taking off on the plane to go to Milan, and everybody singing football songs and waiting for the coaches to take us to the ground, and all playing football. There was this like giant football game in the car park waiting with the coaches, and it was all just the start of this wonderful, massive dream that day. So Wembley will, to this day, goes down as the best day of my life, and I do say that having given birth twice as well. So I really do mean that. It was incredible. It was so special.